Hello, everybody out there in interwebs land. We are the Dice Stormers, which you probably already know if you're here watching us, and it's great that you're watching. So stick a like on the comments and say hi and all that sort of stuff. And we're going to be discussing some interesting stuff. I've been having lots of thoughts recently about all sorts of stuff that we're going to talk about, and we'd love you to jump in on the comments and to completely flame us and tell us how dreadfully wrong we are. No, we're going to try and treat each other's ideas with respect, and we'd love if you did the same and contributed your own perspectives and things is really, really great. So, um, I have been thinking recently and having discussions with various different people here how to resolve certain issues, how to hack D&D to make it even better for the we're going to try and hack D&D for our next game of D&D to try and get it to achieve some slightly different outcomes from what it often achieves, and I think we're all coming to understand from what it's kind of designed to achieve. I'm going to start by sort of giving you the context of what makes me think it might be good to kind of try and hack those rules a little bit, and then we're going to try and basically discuss as a group what we specifically want to do to the rules of D&D and the way that we're going to play it for our next campaign that we're going to try. Because I think I've got a really, really good idea for a fun campaign, which will actually be very demonstrative of the changes that we're thinking of making. And that campaign is Stormwreck Isle, which is a fun beginner adventure, but we're planning to not play it really anything like the book suggests in some very interesting ways. So number one, I really, really, really love the epic tales and heroic deeds and the personal sacrifice of Lord of the Rings. I love this fantasy world. I love sort of almost magically competent swordsmen, elves who can fire two arrows at once and hit two separate targets. Sort of sort of Jedi-like prescience in combat. I love the concept of magic users being able to actually wield fire out of their hands, and all those things. D&D does a fantastic job of really sort of representing in a really vivid way. And I think the D20 system is a fantastic resolution of sort of detail. And yeah, so I love D&D. I also love
This is news to
storytelling
me.
games.
I've never knew you loved D&D.
Yeah.
This Ben, all these revealing truths about yourself.
I love D&D
Right.
so much
Yeah.
that when they broke it with fourth edition, I kept playing D&D and called it Pathfinder 3. That's right, Pathfinder. Yes, I also love storytelling games like Call of Cthulhu, and some of the features of Call of Cthulhu that I really love that D&D doesn't capture quite so well are the really highly storytelling focused aspects of Call of Cthulhu. Where emotions and characters are actually more important than combat, because pretty much in Call of Cthulhu, if you get into combat, you're kind of like saying goodbye, limbs. um, I love the way we play as a group, and I think we play really effectively in all the game systems we use as having a degree of narrative control in the players so that they can take over the story and incorporate their own ideas. And I love playing in game worlds that are plausible, where the characters react in a plausible way to the things they're facing. And Lord of the Rings does that really well. Characters are sort of, upset about the things they're experiencing. They're very afraid. They tend to try and avoid conflict or combat. When combat happens, it kind of has some pretty serious issues, and people get injured, and they don't necessarily recover from those injuries, sort of instantly. Yeah, and so I think especially in Call of Cthulhu, danger is very, very real, and it's something that people would naturally be averse to experiencing. D&D doesn't do that quite so well when it's played in kind of the way that fits most naturally with the rule system. The really unfair characterization of that is, you walk into a room, there are three goblins sitting around a fire, they look up, growl angrily, and attack you. Roll for initiative, and then you kill those, and then you move into the next room, and there's a chimera there which growls aggressively at you and attacks you. Roll for initiative. And I'm kind of like, well, why didn't the chimera gang up with the goblins and set a trap or something, or why hadn't they killed each other already, etc., etc. And D&D is really geared really, really nicely for combat, and murder is the obvious and most straightforward resolution to every difficulty you face. And then one more
The
thing.
hobo
Yeah.
archetype, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I can leave number 5 actually for the end, because it's another thing which actually I don't think D&D will have a problem with at all. Yeah, so how do we make? Is there anything we can do to the D&D rules to make characters more well positioned for solving problems without violence, i.e., using skills in a more kind of skilly way, in the way that Call of Cthulhu does really well? Particular characters are particularly good at particular skills, and also hit points. The thing that really does my brain in with D&D is the kind of the yo-yo effect, where you can get a critical hit, get knocked down to 0 hit points, someone heals you, the next turn you stand up and you're fighting perfectly normally, and then you have a 6-hour break and you're apparently completely unscathed and completely back to normal. And that is actually quite sort of immersion breaking for me. So I'm going to propose an alternate rule system. While I find my alternate rule system, do people want to comment on anything I've said already? Or
well, there was a particularly kind of comical retelling of a D&D battle, and the bit that sticks in my mind is the thief. They're fighting a red dragon, and the thief is on the back of the red dragon, and he does a double-handed backstab and gets all of his, sort of triple damage. And these are very high-level creatures. And then with a swipe of the tail or something, the thief falls off and falls to the ground next to the cleric and dies. And a red dead, quickly followed by a heal spell, brings the thief, way back into the fight, and absolutely new. And so yeah, when it gets to those high levels, it really becomes kind of very unrealistic and comical and almost godlike. But yeah.
That's right. And I think part of that we can fix when we play by essentially agreeing to act a little bit more. You know how Frodo gets stabbed by the cave troll in the movie? And obviously everyone loses tons and tons and tons of hit points before that stab. Frodo, if we think of hit points as an abstraction of combination of ability to turn a killing blow into a glancing blow, a bit of heroic luck, a bit of dodging and weaving, he obviously loses tons and tons and tons of hit points, and then he gets hit with the blow that takes him down essentially to 0. And that's kind of a catastrophe, and it takes him out of the battle, and they have to kind of pick up the bits and pieces of him at the end and stand him back up again. There's
I feel like though with D&D, I've never seen hit points described as you've said. When I picture hit points, I think of John Wick, and just the sheer amount of stuff that happens to him, and he just keeps going, and it's that kind of level of fantasy of like you have to suspend a little bit of disbelief in order to imagine these heroes doing their thing, but it's that John Wick kind of level of taking damage where you're like, he shouldn't have survived that. He gets up and he limps a little bit, and then he's okay for the next scene. So I've always seen it that way. So I've never actually been bothered by the hit point system in that way. I think because of how I've imagined it.
Yeah, it's when Scarlett Johansson falls 3 floors onto an iron pipe, which would have cut her in half, but she just sort of shrugs it off.
Yep.
And that doesn't happen to the Lord of the Rings characters. They don't have bodies like that. What they do have is like, so I think of a boxer, right? You know how a boxer, someone throws a full-blooded punch at the face of a boxer, and the boxer is very, very skillful, high level, moves his head back literally half an inch, and the blow gently touches the front of his nose and doesn't do any damage. So for me, that move back is a loss of hit points. Maybe he's a little bit, he doesn't expect the next blow, which lands, and he does do physical damage, kind of thing. So I think it's in the D&D. D&D rules mention this.
I've heard hit points talked about ever since I was a kid. My friend was very much of the opinion that hit points are sort of a relation to exhaustion. And it's the back and forth, it's the sword play and the, and you're not doing cutting damage, you're doing exhaustion damage, and it's the last cut, the one that takes you to 0 hit points, that is an actual wound.
But I think that as every DM describes, it's all right. The goblin hits you and hits you with his weapon. Your mind doesn't go, oh, I nimbly dodged slightly out of the way. Your mind goes, he hit me, I get a scratch.
Yeah.
Like that's my
right.
first thought. I don't picture, the fatigue thing so much as like blood everywhere and yeah.
I think they do it well with Hagar in the D&D movie. In the battle, she loses hit points just by the dozen all through the last phases of that movie. Like the fight in the forge and then the fight when they're having to escape. And then she only loses her last hit points when she gets stabbed by that dagger. And I really love the way they kind of represent that, because she's always the character with kind of D12. I love it that I'm referring to the D&D movie as some sort of document, but yeah.
But it's also it's what they intended D&D to look like. So I think you've got a real point there.
Yeah. So so my proposal is this. I think Starfinder got it right, and Starfinder formalized the split between stamina, and what they called it, and health. And I believe this is achievable in D&D if you just change one word one word in each of 2 paragraphs in the rules of D&D. And for me, it's just about recovery. So basically we split our current hit points into half, and you can split it either way if you like. You call half of it stamina and half of it health. If you lose stamina, then you lose some of that heroic dodgy ability. You lose maybe you're a little bit more off balance the next time some damage comes along. A bit of your luck goes, whatever. And if you lose health, then you take a wound.
How does that work mechanically? The first bit, like you're a little off balance.
Yeah. So basically, the first time the Dungeon Master rolls damage against you, you subtract that damage from your stamina, and in everyone's imagination, you haven't been cut.
Yep, got it.
Which was a 4th edition rule, right? They had bloodied, right? They literally formalized it in 4th edition. They just said, as you take the first 50% of your hit points, you haven't actually taken a wound, and then once you take another hit point, you're bloodied. And they made some abilities dependent on being bloodied, which is really cool.
Right.
So then I propose that stamina can be recovered with short rests. So that if you've lost, 5 health and you've lost 15 stamina, you can recover that stamina with a short rest, because you're literally taking a breath and shaking it off and clearing your head and having a drink. But the hit points don't heal with a short rest. And the one word change is, in a short rest, the character regains stamina equal to the hit dice. And you can do and that's just the one change. Instead of regaining hit points, you just regain stamina. And if you've got any physical damage, that doesn't get healed with a short rest.
Okay, so if I've got 100 hit points and I've got 50 stamina and 50
health,
then and I go into a battle and I lose 50 stamina and then I lose 20 health.
Yes,
I can regain with a short rest. The 50 stamina, and I'm ended up with 80.
80, that's right. 80 total things.
Total points.
Right. 80 hit points, that's right.
Yeah.
And how do you heal
Would you also
health?
Yep.
Sorry, Johnny. How do you heal the health?
Yes, you can. Well, should we listen to Johnny first, or should I propose the answer?
The other way.
I was just going to ask, are there situations narratively where it would make sense for a character to lose health points even though they haven't run out of stamina yet?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Like
so we would just adjudicate those as they're rational. And I think we're the sort of gaming group that we're not competing against the Dungeon Master. I think it would be quite easy to say, yeah, I think this is coming off my hit points. Yes, so the way you recover hit points is with magical healing.
Right.
And you can't recover stamina with magical healing.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
So say you're in the middle of battle, you've lost 50 stamina and you've lost 20 hit points. The cleric might heal you of all those 20 hit points, but you've still lost your 50 stamina. The only way you're going to get that back is by having a short rest.
There'll be no magic that can heal stamina.
No.
Okay.
That's the theory.
That's almost like a life essence type thing where the only thing you can do is
or
rest.
heroic essence. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Only thing that
Well, I
can
guess you
cure
could-
stamina damage is lemna spread.
That's right. Lots of it. Crumbs, you've got. And the way we do this mechanically in D&D Beyond, say we were going to use a thing like that, is you just put stamina in temporary hit points, and you put hit points in hit points.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah.
Question about critical hits. I really liked Johnny's explanation.
Yes.
You know, when you get a critical hit, you roll 2 dice. Could one dice be for actual damage and the other dice be for stamina?
I like it. Yes, that's a great idea because that basically makes the critical hit a thing that bypasses some of your stamina. Yeah.
I think this will work really well.
Because the other thing is that if you did play a cleric and you found that you went into all these combat encounters and the whole party was just using up their stamina, and you're like, I've got all this healing ability and I can't use it because no one's getting below 50% of their hit points. So I think you do need a few mechanics that will eat into the health earlier.
Yep.
So the cleric's not just waiting for people to be half dead.
Right.
People like running into other swords so that they can take hit point damage rather than the stamina.
The cleric just goes around stabbing people in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you seem to be injured.
Okay, that's cool.
I think that I was just going to say earlier, I think the system sounds like it'll work really well if the emphasis isn't on combat. So these kind of encounters become the climax of the adventure, or maybe it don't even happen at all because that's not the point of that part of the story. Rather than like, how can I get the players down into the hit points and exhaust them and punish them that way so they really feel it? It becomes just like any other game where, you know, you just have to be really careful if you're going to get into combat.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think that's probably where this is all pointing, is that, and the next thing about skill points will point the same direction. If we emphasize skills more and social resolution of things, then combat, which is still a central part of high fantasy, obviously, but combat becomes the climax of the adventure, or the forced solution, or the last resort, or the one dangerous sudden surprise, you know, at the beginning of the third act or something, or
Okay.
much like in Lord of the Rings. Think about the mountain combat.
Especially in the books, there's a lot of just walking in forests.
Yeah, that's right. We're just gonna walk and walk.
Do we get eagles if we're gonna focus on Lord of the Rings? I want to have some giant eagles.
Do you take stamina damage if there's a lot of walking in forests?
That's right, stamina. You're just losing stamina all over the place. That's right.
I mean, there are rules in that in D&D about exhaustion and walking through the desert and, you know, taking kind of exhaustion points and things like that. So, but Ben, I wanted to ask you, because I think we have different points of view about Lord of the Rings, because I look at Faerun and the Forgotten Realms as a very high magic system.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely. But I look at Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings as a very low magic system.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
I take the point and I agree to it. I totally understand why you've made it. It is actually quite easy to watch Gandalf and see him casting quite a lot of spells. They just kind of don't make a kind of a Vancian magic system point of it. Like he casts banishment or whatever, or light or healing thingy against the Nazgul. He obviously casts quite a lot of healing spells all through the thing. He probably enhances his physical combat seriously all the time.
Don't forget the fireworks. Those fireworks.
The fireworks. Prestidigitation. He casts the demon thing out of Theoden. He removes the kind of So there is actually a lot of magic he casts.
I think the difference is that there aren't many.
In every corner.
Yeah, there's only one of him.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, but I agree, to a certain extent. So there will be unexpected consequences, which we'll have to deal with. And as long as we deal with each other fairly, then we can deal with those things that we come across. And I think I take Johnny's point very, very seriously, because if we nerf a character's point of existing, then we kind of realize we need to do something about that, or adjust the. And when you make rule changes like this, unexpected consequences, what happens for sure.
And I think if are we de-emphasizing classes?
Let's discuss that. I don't have an opinion either way. I think that probably might break D&D.
I would like to reinforce them. I would like to.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. What
So
does that look like?
Let's put a sidebar in that. Let's can we come back to that question, because that's about what style of game we're going to choose to play. And if we deal with the second question,
can we hear about your skills thing, which might also play into character?
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Like progression stuff. Which is classes and everything.
A pet peeve I have with 5th edition is they simplified the skill system too much for my liking. I like a bit more crunch. And what it means, one of the consequences is that anyone who has a high wisdom is pretty much just as good at everything else that depends on wisdom as anyone else with a wisdom score that's high. It's so much easier to deal with, in the flame and half a point put in if it's your point thing, that's your point thing, and which was 3rd edition. Remember, you had to spend 2 skill points to get 1 bonus, or if it's not a class skill, and but only 1, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So what I propose is a rule system which I shared on Discord with you guys, which was basically you take all the skill points that you would have gotten when you get a level, including your proficiency, and you can actually spend them freely where you want to. Which means the aim of the thing is that if we actually want John's character to be really good at tracking, and we want Derek's character to be really good at talking. That's right. Yeah. And we just free up the skill system a little bit. Maybe we'll link in the comments to the proposed system. I probably should have actually got my notes somewhere. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
So I really like computer games, and I like Skyrim, and I like things like that, and they have a wonderful kind of system that really works well for them that may not work in any other system, like having a tree of you have a combat tree, and you have a magic tree, and you have things like that. And I wonder if there could be a skill system that we could devise that could do that. I don't think it needs to be as complex as those other ones, but I really like the idea of kind of compounding your interest in a particular in a particular line. And if I put 1 skill point into the trunk of the tree, do I get 1 skill point in all of the things in the tree, and then it's up to me to kind of specialize? Or so I mean, I'd love to explore something like that.
We could do it with a specialization system where you have your general skill, and then you could pick at a certain level, you could pick a specialization which adds like +2 to the roll or something, and then have a second specialization in it as well that isn't a different thing that you could also get bonuses in, or something like that.
Yeah. Does anyone in the audience know of a skill system that's been written out that's like this? I mean, we'll devise our own and give it a try.
I mean,
obviously.
that's the werewolf system. It is you reach a certain number of points, and then you can specialize in something. But it's a slightly different than it, I think.
We can achieve some of this just by encouraging min-maxing. Which usually has a bad name, but it's like if we actually lean into that intentionally and still try and kind of have a balanced party overall. Like if we're all min-maxing in different ways, rather than just in a kind of combat heavy way, which is often how it ends up being done.
Yes, and I think basically all we have to make sure is that the bonus on your best skill is not more than 2 more than you would have been able to achieve within the standard system, I think, for instance.
Yeah, okay.
Which is your proficiency plus your kind of your ability bonus or something. Like, so maybe you're allowed to spend up to your proficiency what it would have been +2 or something like that. Yeah. Because I'd love people to be a bit better at the thing that they want to be better at, I think. That's kind of the theory. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And what that means, what the consequence of that theoretically, is that each character might have quite a powerful way of resolving a situation or overcoming a challenge that depends on skills, and they'll be quite effective at it. And ideally, they're the character upon which the whole party has to rely in order to help get through that situation. That's the sort of the aim.
Do you liken that to something like in Call of Cthulhu, where there's one person who's got the good drive skill, and one person who's got the good psychology skill? And
100%. That's it. Literally comes from that concept.
Yeah,
because I just don't get that in D&D.
Your camera's frozen, Ben.
Camera froze. Sorry.
I'm very attractive.
A very attractive phrase.
I think just leave it up. I think that's fine.
You look rather bored with us all. They're talking again.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it looks like OBS is okay. I'll be back. Come on, it looks so terrible.
I wanted to propose something which I have no dog in this fight. I don't really care either way. But I was wondering if it might be better if we did something like remove feats as an option and replace them with more magic items, or something like that.
That's a fun idea. Yeah.
I mean, if we wanted to go for a more high magic feel, that might be a way of doing it.
Historically, Ben, you don't hand out magic items very often.
Yeah, well, I can certainly revise that.
Is that something that you'd want to do?
I have no objection to magic items. I'm probably just lax and disorganized.
Okay.
And I think we should definitely lean into, the rules of magic items, how you can only have 3 of them attuned to you if they're kind of quite powerful magic items and things like that. That might be fun, or it might just be a distraction. I don't know.
That's cool.
I'm sort of
we can base. Yeah, Johnny.
Oh, you've frozen again.
Ben's frozen again.
Okay,
but it's okay. Right. This one's much more flattering.
I wonder how, are a lot of magic items, maybe I just have most of the magic items I've encountered in D&D are all combat.
There are lots of really interesting magic items,
armor or swords or bows.
Yeah, I think
wanting to have story that isn't combat heavy, then we're going to have magic items that are also not combat.
A little bit more like Numenera with weird and wondrous kind of items.
Yeah, and
but
like
not necessarily
have
powerful,
a magic item
that
I haven't had a really good look at it yet.
Like narrative focused things.
In the latest version of the DMG, there's a huge section on magic items. So I'll dive into that. Yeah, like pages and pages
to expand my knowledge.
Cool. Okay, so do we agree then? Just to summarize, we agree to adopt this hit point system that I'll make very explicit and very clear, and we'll actively deal with the consequences as they arise.
Yep.
Happy to do that. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
We'll come up with a skill system. Let's maybe each propose something or do a bit of searching, and with the help of our kind audience, maybe come up with a skill system that might work for us. Happy for that.
I can just picture Derek's like elaborate Skyrim tree that he creates that looks like it's 100 pages long and it's got every skill you can think of. Like, oh god,
I can see you.
I'll send you the PDF.
That's right.
Oh, the file size is too big.
A plugin for D&D Beyond.
Yeah, reel me in as soon as it gets too much.
I wouldn't have wrapped up listen and smell and look into perception. I think that was a terrible mistake.
Smell?
Yeah.
Smell was a separate skill?
I don't know. Is it a separate thing? Maybe listen and look. Yeah, listen and spot or something. I'd love to split those up if I could possibly have. If there's one thing I'd love that. Yeah,
and I don't understand how you can be incredibly good at athletics and crap at acrobatics.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that does. Surely they key off each other.
Yes.
And same with social skills like persuasion and intimidation.
Yeah. Juice Dragon.
Oh yeah.
I think this sounds like a job for you, Derek. This sounds like your
this is my jam.
We don't hear from Derek for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. I think some of that D&D stuff of like, yeah, those, like if you're good at charisma, then you're good at all of the charisma-based skills, even though in the real world, someone might deal with all their conflicts with persuasion, and someone else might deal with all their conflicts with intimidation.
Yes.
And it's like very few people are going to draw equally from both those skills.
100%.
But in D&D, if you're a face character, you're good at both.
Yeah.
And the reason to do it, the reason they did it is because the 3rd edition system was hella complicated, and you literally couldn't take off a level without like whole re-engineering which level it was you took, and am I taking off a level of Bard where, it's like, it was pretty catastrophic.
With that being said, with the skill system that's currently in place, I'm not super familiar with progression. Is it a system that will need modifying with progression?
Yeah, that's right. So something like you'll get, each time you get a level, you'll get a set of skill points, and you can distribute them according to Derek's tree.
Yeah.
I think that'll work. Yeah. And as I said, all we have to do is to make sure that no one can have a skill that's more than, say, their bonus is more than, say, +2 what you could possibly have had at that level.
Yep, makes sense.
And I think we should be safe. Yeah.
Okay.
Because then we can keep the whole DC thing sort of balanced according to what the adventure expects. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you have a system where you could break that rule, but there's a massive penalty, or there's a
you have to trade off. Yeah,
there's a trade off.
Like have no arms or something like that.
Yeah, you're very disfigured.
That's right. You look like Ben when his camera freezes.
Right. You can take gymnastics, but you lose 2 arms. Is that the kind of thing? Yeah.
Right. You can take seduce, like overpowered, but you lose the ability to do anything about it.
You become impotent.
Nice. Well, I'm excited. This is interesting.
Okay.
Does this count as a session 0, or do we want to do another session 0 and you tell us about?
Well, the other thing we need to talk about is my concept of the campaign and what characters you should build, which sounds like a different conversation. So we could probably end this conversation and bless our kind viewers with another video. So thank you, everyone. That was lovely. Thank you for listening to us all crap on. And please comment in the comments if you've tried some of these things, or if you've fallen foul of some pitfalls that we might be armed to defend against. And you'll get to watch us flail in the mire that we've created for ourselves.
Nice.